Good together, looking good.
This is an Eyewitness News update.
Good evening. Arab countries continue to blast Israel for bombing an Iraqi nuclear plant a week ago. The foreign minister of Saudi Arabia said today that sanctions should be imposed against Israel for the attack. Prime Minister Begin of Israel, meanwhile, called on the United States for understanding. He says he has absolute proof that the Iraqi plant was going to be used to make atomic bombs. It's been a rough night weather-wise in Minnesota. More than 70 people were hurt when a series of tornadoes swept through the Minneapolis-St. Paul area this evening. Our weather forecast calls for a 30% chance of showers tomorrow, continued hot and humid. The low tonight, 72, high tomorrow, 95. We will have complete news, sports, and weather details coming up in 1 hour.
The Soviet Union has made it plain that they not only believe that a nuclear war is survivable, they believe that it is winnable.
Are you ready for war?
I certainly am.
Right now?
That's right.
Do you think the American people are?
I don't know.
Now I want you to put yourself in the middle of a battlefield that is truly integrated, and by that I mean a battlefield where nuclear, chemical, or conventional weapons could be and may be employed in any combination.
Our friends and allies no longer feel they can depend on us, no longer trust us, and the Soviet Union has shown its contempt for us and how much it knows it now outpowers us militarily. It is time for us to start a build-up, and it is time for us to build that to the point that no other nation on this earth will ever dare raise a hand against us, and in this way we will preserve world peace.
The defense of the United States. For 100 years, we have kept our enemies at bay and fought our battles on foreign soil. We have avoided direct confrontation with our most powerful adversary, the Soviet Union. It seems we have bought enough weapons and built enough bombs to deter war. But the price of peace has been high, and it's going to get much higher. The nation is about to commit itself to the biggest defense spending buildup in our history. Over the next 5 years, $1.3 trillion. Yet for a commitment of this magnitude, we have heard little debate about alternatives, about its implications, about the effects on our society.
For the next 5 nights, CBS Reports will examine the state of our defenses. Tonight, Bob Schieffer and I will take a close look at the terrifying prospect of nuclear war with the Soviet Union. And in the course of this broadcast, we'll show you, as close as anyone can calculate, what such a catastrophe would be like. What would happen to this community, 2 miles from Strategic Air Command headquarters, 13 miles from downtown Omaha, if a 15-megaton nuclear bomb hits?
Mustang, engineered to turn high mileage into high excitement. No wonder America's most popular sports car is Mustang.
What do doctors recommend to avoid constipation? These days, doctors stress the importance of fiber in the diet. Food fiber that helps the system regulate itself naturally. Metamucil is made from natural fiber, no chemical stimulants. So for occasional constipation, doctors recommend Metamucil more often than any other laxative. The way to overcome constipation is the natural way. But if not nature, Metamucil.
This is an Air Force mock-up of a Minuteman missile nose cone. It's not much taller than a couple of steamer trunks, but when you're carrying this kind of baggage, check how it's packed. Scientists call this MIRV, Multiple Independently Targetable Reentry Vehicle. In plain language, it is a three-headed bomb. Each of these warheads is 25 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. As this nose cone streaks through space, the warheads would drop one at a time on individual targets many miles apart. How accurate are they? Well, some experts say if you were 6,000 miles from Yankee Stadium and aimed one of them at the pitcher's mound, it would probably land in the ballpark. What has the President and the Pentagon worried is that the Soviet Union now has so many MIRV missiles, with warheads even bigger than these, that it might be tempted to try what is called limited nuclear war. A war in which the Soviets would launch a surprise attack that could wipe out up to 90% of our land-based missiles and most of our bombers. This, the argument goes, would cripple our ability to retaliate, and we'd be forced to surrender. We are, it is said, now vulnerable to a Soviet first strike. This is where we'd know we're at war, and this is how one Pentagon scenario suggests it might happen.
Missile warning, this is Beale. Stand by for confidence reporting.
Radar consoles pick up the incoming missile.
SCO, no malfunction.
Missile warning, no malfunction. Keep trying. Missile warning, this is Beale. Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high. Roger, we've got 32 targets in track and 10 impacting points. I want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Basic Command Center with warning conference, stand by. Basic Command Center with warning conference, stand by.
Hello, SAC warning controller, this is the Airborne. Confirm inbound missiles on the U.S. Roger, understand. Major Reinhardt, we have 12 sea-launched ballistic missiles inbound on the U.S. now.
Okay, I gotta go.
Stand by to come with the message. Stand by.
Message follows. Alpha 7 8.
The SAC bomber crews scramble.
Batteries on, interpol.
Airborne control, the Pentagon's worst fears are confirmed.
Roger, understand. Major Reinhardt, we have a massive attack against the U.S. nest at this time. ICBMs. Numerous ICBMs. Roger, understand. Over 300 missiles inbound now.
The bombers get off the ground just as the first missiles hit.
Topside! Gotta get out of here! Let's enable the missiles. Program select switch, enable. Flight all, LFO. Unlock code inserted.
The missile crews race to get their missiles launched.
Unlock codes inserted. Enable switch, enable. It's enabled. Coordinate. Enable command.
Yes, this is Oscar. We're doing all call enable. Thank you.
Key turn on my mark.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3.
Oh my God, we've had a nuclear detonation. What do you want me to do? What should I...
The Soviet Union does believe that a nuclear war is possible, is survivable, and is winnable by them. They have the nuclear edge today to attack our silos, our nuclear weapons, and still have enough left that if we retaliate in any way with, let's say, some surviving submarine missiles or something, that they can attack our industrial centers and our population. And it has been estimated by military intelligence that the casualties in such a war would be 10 to 1 in favor of the Soviet Union.
That was 1980. 1 year later, the threat of a Soviet first strike is still being presented as a powerful argument for building new strategic weapons. But when the president worries about a first strike, does that mean we are vulnerable now or that we have lost our nuclear clout? No, says the Navy's Director of Strategic and Theater Nuclear Warfare, Admiral Powell Carter, not by a long shot.
Almost from the beginning, I suppose, our defense strategy has been based on a simple concept that if they launched a strike against us, we would have the capability to destroy their society. Do we still have that capability, Admiral?
We believe we do. Again, you're trying to reach inside the mind to the Soviet leadership and determine what is acceptable. We do not have the capability to totally destroy the Soviet Union, and they don't have the capability to totally destroy the United States. If you mean destroy is to go down to every little village and hamlet and destroy it. We have the ability to destroy what we think is an unacceptable amount of their industry, their communications, their ability to recover, and in particular their ability to survive as a national entity.
America's strategic nuclear forces are divided into three parts called the Triad. Missiles buried underground, bombers which can be airborne within minutes, and missile-firing submarines which can prowl the ocean undetected. This triad was designed so that a surprise attack could not destroy all our forces. This is the least vulnerable leg of the triad, the submarines. One Poseidon submarine can dump as many as 160 nuclear warheads on the Soviet Union. We have 39 of these subs which can deliver about 4,000 warheads on target. The Soviets have 62 with about 1,000 warheads. American subs are considered superior, and both sides are trying to build bigger ones. Once these American subs are out to sea, and there are 25 out there all the time, they cannot be knocked out by a Soviet first strike. If the Soviets did attack and destroy most of our land-based missiles and bombers, they would still have to take into account those 25 American subs loaded with 400 missiles carrying 3,000 nuclear warheads.
The submarine was primarily designed to destroy Soviet industry and inflict unacceptable amount of damage on the Soviet Union.
Is it dangerous for us to call the United States vulnerable to Soviet attack?
I think probably it's dangerous, but I think in a free democratic society there's no way to prevent it. Our whole system forces us in that. If we're going to mobilize the American people to support the large expenditures that are necessary to correct the force deficiencies, we have to convince them that force deficiencies exist.
It does not take long to discover every Air Force general's favorite force deficiency, the B-52 bomber, now older than some of the pilots who fly it. Each of these aircraft can carry up to 8 nuclear warheads, but soon will be able to carry 16 long-range cruise missiles. We have 350 B-52s, which can now deliver 2,400 warheads. The Soviets have never put much emphasis on long-range bombers. They have about 150, armed with 300 warheads. The Air Force wants a new bomber, the B-1, but the old B-52s are still looked on with great affection by the men who fly them.
Do you really think you'll have time to get these airplanes off the ground in the event of a real nuclear attack?
Yes, we practice constantly trying to do that, and we have time limitations that we're required to get the aircraft off the ground. We have a what we call a minimum interval takeoff that we use, and the aircraft are down to 12 seconds between aircraft on a takeoff roll, and we can flush the entire fleet out of here very, very quickly, those that are on alert.
About a third of the fleet is always on alert. That is, loaded with bombs, crews standing by ready for immediate takeoff. And they seem ready for any contingency, even taking off with the drapes drawn.
Front of the airplane, and we can close this cockpit up, close all of the curtains, and actually taxi the airplane using that screen. Gives us a picture outside the airplane, and we can actually take off using that screen.
Why do you want to close off the cockpit? Why the curtains?
Well, as these airplanes sit on alert, we would probably launch under attack on a survivability type launch. And we would be under the effect of a nuclear attack, probably or possibly, and we'd want to keep the pilot from becoming flash blind.
From the blast of a nuclear weapon.
Right, as he is taxiing out and actually taking off and climbing to altitude. Once he gets to altitude, he should be better off than he is here on the ground.
But once the bomber gets to the Soviet border, it becomes a problem of how low can you go?
Our best tactic is the low-altitude tactic to penetrate enemy defenses, fly as low as possible to avoid his radars.
Flying only a few hundred feet above ground in an old airplane may be one of the scariest rides going, but this is the slow track of nuclear war. Critics argue that nuclear war would be over in the 6 to 10 hours it would take these bombers to reach their targets. Pilots counter that's an asset, that because they are slow, the bombers are the only delivery systems that can be turned around after they are launched. There is no debating that these behemoths, the land-based missiles that make up the third part of the triad, would be the first on target. We have 1,052 of them with 2,152 warheads, the biggest and most powerful and most accurate missiles in our arsenal. The Russians have put almost all their strategic eggs in the missile silos. They now have 1,400 missiles with 5,000 warheads and are still building new ones. To counter the new Russian buildup, the Carter administration came up with this, a giant new missile, the MX, and a $35 billion plan to rotate 200 missiles in a giant shell game among 4,600 shelters, which ironically Jimmy Carter himself once called the dumbest thing he'd ever seen. President Reagan is unhappy about the plan to hide the MX in the western desert, but he wants the MX missile to counter Soviet nuclear war scenarios that even some of the generals have a hard time imagining. Lieutenant General Kelly Burke, Chief of Air Force Research and Development.
I have always found the hypothetical nuclear scenarios inherently implausible. I've never seen one that I thought was really likely to transpire. But on the other hand, the history of war and conflict between nations shows many instances of war starting for altogether implausible reasons.
I'd like to talk about that. You find all the scenarios implausible. Why?
It's very difficult for me to conceive of either side initiating a nuclear attack on the other, so long as each side has the great arsenal of power and destruction that they currently have.
Let's get back to vulnerability. If the American ICBMs were all knocked out, wouldn't we still have enough weapons to retaliate?
We would have a vast armada of weapons with which to retaliate, and we would be able to wreak a terrible destruction against the Soviet Union. And that's why I'm not of a mind to panic over this problem, and I don't think the country should react extremely and set about by throwing money at it, trying to solve it overnight. I think we do have time to fix this problem, but I think we better get it fixed before one of the other two legs of the triad becomes somewhat vulnerable.
I want to press you on this. If the Soviets knocked out all of our land-based missiles and we still had enough warheads to do just a devastating damage on them, why isn't that enough?
Well, how long can we be assured that those remaining weapons will themselves be invulnerable is my question.
No general or admiral is ever likely to say enough is enough. That is the job for civilian officials and politicians. But distrust of the Russians and the fear of being vulnerable to a surprise attack has haunted American presidents since Pearl Harbor. In the beginning of the nuclear age, we had overwhelming superiority, and we wanted to keep it that way. But the Russians don't trust us any more than we trust them. So these hydra-headed monsters have continued to multiply, and the arms race continues, a race with no finish line.
Hope you made a special dessert for our little girl's sweet 16.
I didn't make dessert. No dessert. Instead, I made some fun.
Watch it glimmer, see it shimmer, cool and fruity, Jell-O brand gelatin. Of all desserts, you'll love the one that tastes so light and makes such fun. Make Jell-O gelatin and make some fun.
Mom, you made turning 16 fun.
Good morning, Alice. New Maxwell House Master Blend coffee?
The new ground coffee that can save us money.
Well, saves money, fine, but how does Master Blend taste? That means it tastes like Maxwell House.
New Master Blend, 100% pure ground coffee. Not concentrated, not flaked, because we make it a special way. It's the great tasting coffee that can save you money.
Great coffee.
New Maxwell House Master Blend. Great tasting coffee that can save you money.
While the theories of nuclear warfare have been argued over the years, the building of nuclear weapons has never stopped. This is the Military Liaison Committee, which meets routinely in a Pentagon office suspended inside a vault. Its task is to supervise the development and production of nuclear weapons.
Looking around the table, looks like everybody's ready for bear.
The bear they're talking about is not the Yellowstone Park variety.
Before we start, we have a full...
The Soviet Union today has about 6,000 nuclear bombs for its long-range strategic forces. The United States has about 9,000. Both sides are now building more than ever. With the MX, in 5 years, we would have 12,000. The Russians will reach 10,000.
Third item is an Air Force briefing on MX warhead feasibility study status. The fourth item is an Army briefing on the Pershing missile warhead status. Good morning, sir.
Half a continent away at Strategic Air Command headquarters at Omaha, Nebraska, another group meets each morning to call the roll on the nuclear forces that both sides already have in place. There are so many weapons now that just deciding how they would be used is a full-time job. You don't hear much about it, but we have a nuclear game plan, a highly secret, constantly changing battle strategy called the SIOP, the Single Integrated Operational Plan.
Basically, it's the war plan for the United States, which targets individual warheads on U.S. missiles and bombers against targets in the Soviet Union.
Roger Molander, a specialist on national security who served under Presidents Nixon, Ford, and Carter.
As the targets divide up, they really come in these three categories of, say, first leadership targets, the way we sort of target. First, places where we would expect the Soviet leadership to be, both the civilian and the military leadership, and as you might imagine, we are able to identify those targets, we think, pretty well. But they're not large in numbers, say a few hundred or something like that. Then there are the military targets, your bomber bases, ship bases. Then the third category is economic targets or economic recovery targets. And there we're talking about missile factories or ball bearing factories, steel plants, power production, oil.
Well, one would almost think that with as many warheads as the United States has, it would be difficult to find enough targets for them in the Soviet Union.
If you're confident of being able to put this 8,000th nuclear warhead on a target, it's hard to argue that some of those targets are really of any significance. I mean, what you're doing is you're more in a situation where you're weapon rich and you're kind of putting the last weapon on a pretty uninteresting target.
The decision to fire American missiles at Soviet targets would be made because here in the Colorado Rockies, America's electronic defenses verified that the United States was being attacked. Deep inside this granite mountain is NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which tracks every object approaching the United States.
NORAD is built to survive. These massive steel doors weigh 25 tons apiece, and all of the buildings inside this granite mountain sit on giant shock absorbers to cushion the blast from a nuclear explosion. Yet everyone here knows that all of the steel and all of the granite could protect the command post only in the event of a near miss. A direct hit by a large nuclear warhead would turn this 100-million-year-old mountain into an instant tomb.
This is America's waiting room for war. If the Soviets ever tried to wipe out our land-based missiles in a surprise attack, the first warning would appear on these consoles. Here, a combined force of Americans and Canadians log every object in space, treating everything with suspicion.
Probably turn out to be another commercial airliner.
And this is how we would react. Seconds after a Soviet missile is launched, the heat detectors in our satellites would speed the information to one of these screens. General Warren Moore of NORAD.
At the outset, we'll have an indication of a launch, and so we'll begin to look at it. Very quickly, the satellite will give you an indication or a fan of where it may be going. And it's looking at it, determining how much power it's got, and it's trying to type the missile itself. At the outset, you're going to have something around 30 minutes warning. And by the time it traverses to the point where it breaks the BMU's radar, you've got 17 minutes to go.
But I suppose what worries people is there's so little time there. What do you
That
say?
worries us as well.
Generally, it's 17 minutes, generally, before the missile's going to hit, before the president is brought in.
A half hour, we know that something's coming, probably, but 17 minutes, we'll be able to define it more accurately. We'd like to improve our ability to present to the president the kind of data that he needs to make that decision. Tell him how many, exactly where they're going. Is it a feint? Is he going after your missile fields? Is he going after the cities?
And all boils down to the fact that in such an attack, he would have a very few minutes to make what would clearly be the most critical decision any president's ever had to make.
With 17 minutes to go, what does the president do? Until recent years, the strategy was to ride out the attack, hold all the missiles in reserve, and then decide how to retaliate. Concern that the land-based missiles may not survive a first strike has led the Reagan administration to focus new attention on another strategy: launch under attack. That is, launch some of our missiles the moment the first Soviet missiles explode, but before we know the scope of the attack.
Headquarters SAC, General Ellis.
Launch under attack has never been official U.S. policy. But the truth is, we practice it every year in war games like this one, Operation Global Shield.
General Ellis, we have indications of multiple ICBM launches threatening North America. This activity is now displayed on the balcony monitors behind you. SIGNORAD assessment and decision time remaining is also shown. We await your decision on positive control loss of the force for survival.
Sir, your decision time is shown here. Launch the force under positive control. I'm going airborne.
General Ellis and the SAC bomber fleet go on full alert. Then the narrator of this Air Force film announces the decision to launch under attack.
The simulated enemy strike is confirmed. A mass missile raid on the U.S. is in progress. The order comes in from the president. Execute the retaliatory attack.
Stand by, please. Message follows. Tango 6 3 Delta Yankee Tango.
10 seconds to go. Bombs way up out.
Roger.
The United States never has, and in my opinion, never should renounce the possibility of launching its missiles and forces on confirmed warning of a Soviet attack. But it's an altogether different state of affairs than to structure your forces in such a manner that they can survive only based on that launch on warning.
At the Pentagon, Dan Rather talked to Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger about America's strategic options.
Mr. Secretary, it has been the policy of this country through succeeding administrations that if a nuclear attack is launched on this country, that we would absorb the first strike and the president would then make a decision whether to respond. Is that still the policy of the United States of America?
I would certainly say, with respect to any question about what our policy is in connection with a nuclear attack on the United States, that it would be nothing I would want to discuss or disclose publicly ahead of time. I think that these matters are under constant review, as they have to be. This is the ultimate weapon and would be the ultimate decision that this country would have to make to survive in one form or another. And certainly that's too important to go around telegraphing our intentions to anybody who might have a first strike in mind.
I have to pause because that has been the policy. Are you telling me that it's possible the policy has changed with the Reagan administration?
Well, I'm saying that with the responsibility that we have here for the defense of the country, that these matters have to be under constant and continual review to see what is the best policy to take advantage of any change in the situation.
But your basic recommendation is that we must be prepared, we must at least be prepared to do a launch under attack, and well, at the same time we need the
it gives undue emphasis to single out any one particular kind of option and say that that is the one we're considering. We're considering them all. We aren't eliminating anything. We're considering anti-ballistic missile defenses. We're considering all of the research and development activities that will help us defend the country. We're considering all of the possible ways of trying to do it and the possible strategies of helping to maintain this balance that will preserve the peace. All we want, all we're trying to do is to preserve the peace and with it our own freedom. Peace and freedom together are an indivisible goal.
Roger, this is an update on the unknown track in the 23rd NORAD region. Track number Golf 164. Please disregard. This was a bad data track.
Clearly, launching our missiles by mistake is the ultimate nightmare. In one 18-month period, there were 147 false alarms triggered by, among other things, a Soviet training launch, a failed computer chip, on another occasion, a gas fire in the Siberian pipeline.
Does that mean that the possibility exists that we could get into war by mistake or by accident?
Never.
Why?
First, all of these systems are data systems. They provide the information to us. We laugh and say the computers become more excited than we do. We don't believe them. They're good devices, and it's a marvelous system. And we take that data, and then a man gets into the act. He's always into the loop, analyzing, probing, testing to find out whether it's real or not.
There is no question that launching under attack would require quick thinking. Yet the whole point of adopting such a strategy is not that we would use it, only that we would be prepared to use it. As long as the possibility of America launching under attack exists, all of our land-based missiles cannot be considered vulnerable. Thus, the Russians would be taking an enormous gamble if they decided to launch a first strike, since their own country might be devastated by the American missiles they were trying to destroy.
CBS Reports will continue.
Touch. Now Canon gives it a new meaning with the One Touch, the Canon NP120 copier. There isn't even a power switch. Just touch and copying begins instantly. You get 12 copies a minute on plain paper, without wasted time or energy. The low-cost Canon NP120, the One Touch. Turning it off is even simpler. No touch. Call toll-free for information, or contact your Canon dealer.
Before you buy any appliance, see the great value buys on hand at your participating Whirlpool dealer. He wants you to compare for quality, features, long life dependability, and price. And for a limited time, he's featuring some of the most popular Whirlpool models. Look for his special Value Buys tag on the biggest values in his store today and see what a value Whirlpool quality can be.
Hello, I'm Walter Cronkite. For the past few months, I've been out looking at this world of ours, a world in which robots are making more robots while living species face extinction, and where man is reaching far into the past to discover the future. It's quite an adventure, and it's my new assignment, the universe.
This is CBS.
What's so exciting about RC100 Cola?
Nothing. RC100's got nothing. Nothing. No sugar and no caffeine. Nothing but taste. RC100's got nothing.
It's like nothing I've ever seen.
If you haven't tasted caffeine-free RC100,
you ain't tasted nothing yet.
RC100's got nothing. It's got nothing but taste.
Thanks for nothing.
Sounds entertain Charlotte, details at 10.
We have tried to calculate in this broadcast how risky it would be for the Soviets to launch their missiles in a first strike. They would have to believe that American submarines would not retaliate with their 3,000 warheads. They would have to believe we would not launch our own land-based missiles under attack. But there is another risk. They would also have to believe that a limited nuclear war would stay limited. Let's say the Soviet Union launches a first strike. They decide to take out all 1,053 of the land-based missiles. How can you do that without destroying this country?
Oh, I think that's credible. It sounds incredible. I mean, people think 10 million Americans. My God, you know, how could that happen? How we could survive? But the Soviets lost 20 million Russians in World War II, and they survived.
They never forgot it either.
Oh, no, they never forgot it, but they managed to survive as a nation and certainly have now achieved superpower status. I think we, as Americans, it's one of the disadvantages we work under. Losses and human suffering at that magnitude is unthinkable to us, and for good reason. But I think the average Soviet citizen is very thinkable. They've gone through it.
A nuclear exchange today could kill more Americans and Russians in 5 days or even 5 hours than World War II did in 5 years. So if we want to maintain control over such a war, we had better make sure the president lives through it. That probably means getting him out of the White House, across Washington by helicopter, to Andrews Air Force Base, where the president's getaway plane, codenamed Kneecap, is parked. It sits here 24 hours a day, protected by security guards who are ordered to shoot anyone crossing its red perimeter. Kneecap has one purpose: to get the president out of danger and keep him in command of our nuclear forces.
A lot of people think that one of the tactics which the Soviets might use would be essentially to decapitate the command and control structure by killing the president and the rest of the command structure in Washington.
What happens after that?
Well, I think people pretty well know that authority cascades down through the various specified civilian decision makers to within the military structure. I think some people like to jocularly say that it'll be a two-star general in Looking Glass somewhere over Nebraska who will make the decisions.
Joking aside, this man may be that general. His name is Reuben Autry. Once a week, he flies what's officially called the Looking Glass plane, or unofficially the Doomsday plane. His assignment is to maintain a link between the president and nuclear forces everywhere. If the president and his staff are wiped out and SAC headquarters is destroyed, these are some of the men who would run the war. There is always a Looking Glass plane in the air, flying command posts complete with code books and targeting options. But the men aboard this plane know that all the code books in the world don't begin to tell you what the effects of a limited war would be.
It seems to me that with the effects of nuclear weapons, any attack on this country will be a major attack in the sense that there is no target structure that I'm aware of that would not kill literally millions of Americans.
We know what nuclear explosions look like, but the more you talk to the people who deal with nuclear weapons, the more you realize how little we know about nuclear war. In a blast like this, for instance, an electromagnetic pulse more powerful than any lightning bolt is released. Communications would be disrupted for 1,000 miles. Neither we nor the Soviets know whether other missiles could find their targets after the first missiles explode. And no missiles have ever been test-fired across the Earth's magnetic pole.
It's something we will never be able to practice. So you'll never know, can you coordinate a strike? What effect will those weapons have on each other? What effects on accuracy you'll have, the biases. We think we know, we do our very best to find out, but we'll never be sure, and the Soviets will never be sure.
Only the submarines, thousands of miles from the U.S. mainland, would be unaffected by a surprise attack. But communicating with the subs, difficult under ideal conditions, might become impossible. It is for this reason that we suspected a submarine commander might be able to fire his nuclear missiles without codes released by the president. We know that land-based missiles and bombers cannot be launched independently. They have built-in technical safeguards. But what about the submarine? It has never been admitted publicly before, but Admiral Powell Carter confirmed to us for the first time that yes, the submarine commander and his crew have the capability to launch their nuclear missiles in a crisis if they have lost communications with the command structure.
Let's say there was a total blackout in communications. Would you have to have information from the command authorities or from some outside source in order to launch, or couldn't you in fact go ahead and launch?
There is nothing on a submarine system that prevents that mechanically through some sort of an interlock system that has to receive electromagnetic pulses from outside the submarine to enable the missile to be launched. No, that's not the case. The whole thing is vested in the
integrity of the crew.
Even though it would take the cooperation of practically the entire crew to fire the missiles, the fact remains that these men have the capability to wage a nuclear war all by themselves. Any Soviet planner contemplating a surprise attack must take into account that the subs would be out there. The subs might be out of contact for a while, but they would be able on their own to continue or expand the war. More disturbing, perhaps, is the ease with which strategists talk about first strike. Limited nuclear war has made the horror of a nuclear exchange seem somehow manageable, even commonplace. That suggests we have finally learned to live with the bomb. Out in the missile fields of North Dakota, where men control warheads hundreds of times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, it is just another day at the office.
Lima, Echo. Okay, let's coordinate the command with everybody else. Everybody is coordinated. Coordinated. Okay, I'm launching at this time. Missile away.
It must be an enormous responsibility. You must, to be in charge, as you two gentlemen are, of the most powerful weapon, I suppose, man has ever devised.
Yes, sir. It is a definite challenge. It's more responsibility than I could obtain in a civilian world. And to me, that is job satisfaction.
Do you guys actually know which missiles out there in the silos are yours?
Yes, sir, we certainly do.
And do you know the targets that they're targeted for?
No, sir, we do not.
You don't know?
No, sir.
Do you ever wonder?
Yes, sir. Sometimes I do. I wonder what the target is. You know, are the people over there thinking of the same way I am? You know, what is that guy over in Minot, what is he like? If we ever go to war, what would our counterparts be, if you will? But it's a question really of being able to use the information as opposed to what it is used for. We know how to use the targeting data for the missile and to launch the missile if we're required to, but to actually know where the target is for each missile, I really wouldn't want to know. Personally, I wouldn't want to know.
Why not?
Well, I really don't. I don't have a need to know to start with. Secondly, I would feel kind of emotional about what kind of people I'd be destroying.
Oh, Mr. Goodwrench, can I get a tune-up?
Sure can.
What's that?
Your written estimate.
Mr. Goodwrench wants you to know in advance just about how much the job will cost. He has the GM training and tools available to do the job right.
Gee, that's reasonable.
Mr. Goodwrench knows our customers don't like surprises.
Keep that great GM feeling.
Where Mr. Goodwrench works.
With genuine GM parts.
Hey, what's up?
T1000.
What's a T1000?
The new penny pincher from Pontiac.
Looks great. What's it got?
It's got a lot. 4-cylinder engine, reclining front bucket seats, rack and pinion steering, 4-speed manual transmission, front disc brakes, and lots of room.
Wow. What's the price?
The price is nice. $53.58.
Wow. That is a penny pincher.
CT1000 at your Pontiac dealer now.
America needs to find oil in reliable places, at home and in other places we can count on, such as the British and Norwegian waters of the North Sea. Here, Conoco has spent hundreds of millions of dollars and pioneered new technology. Beneath these stormy seas, we're finding and producing oil that helps America. Conoco. This year, we're spending nearly $3 billion on energy.
Out with it.
My cheerleading outfit, Mom.
No, your dry bleach. It won't clean your yellow outfit like Clorox 2. Clorox 2 is best for colors.
But what about this grass stain?
That's why Clorox 2 is best. Its extra strength gets out tough stains better than the others. Come on.
Extra strength Clorox 2 beats the rest at cleaning colors the best.
Now, how is that for clean? Great! Clorox 2 sure gives me something to cheer about.
We know now that our missiles are aimed at thousands of different targets in the Soviet Union. Military installations, industrial areas, and key strategic cities. If you look at a map of the United States, it isn't hard to guess which strategic American targets, which American cities, would be designated by the Russians for quick destruction. Omaha, Nebraska, practically in the center of the country, in the heart of America's farmland. Omaha, on the banks of the Missouri River, between major routes that link Canada with the Gulf of Mexico. Omaha, home of the Strategic Air Command. This would be ground zero for a Soviet missile directed on SAC headquarters. SAC, of course, is the control center for all of America's strategic nuclear forces. It is largely underground, 3 stories under, to shield it from the shock of a nuclear explosion. It was not designed to withstand a direct hit. Less than 15 miles away, in downtown Omaha, there is an enormous fallout shelter to protect Omaha's civic leaders in case of a nuclear attack, and a plan to evacuate the entire population.
Omaha's about 500,000 people, a typical Midwestern town to the degree that people are very hardy, very work ethic conscious, very patriotic.
Jerry Allen represents a national textile concern in the Omaha area. He lives with his wife Diane in Bellevue, Nebraska, a small community 15 miles from downtown Omaha. Jerry is 37 years old. He and Diane moved into this house in 1970. They have 2 children. Michelle is 8 years old. Julie is 12. The Allen kids go to school a couple of miles from home, a couple of miles from the Strategic Air Command. The Allen family lives in the shadow of SAC, in the shadow of a nuclear war that just might begin in their backyard.
I've lived here since I was about 2 years of age. I watched the Strategic Air Command develop, General LeMay, when he first came here. And what does this mean? 10:30 at night when Looking Glass takes off. You know, you think about it. You know what Looking Glass is. You know, they're going up, and that's their mission, to retaliate in case there's a strike against this country. So yeah, it's like on a daily basis. You can't dwell on it. You have to dwell on, you know, other things. But it's there, and you always know it's there.
The children play soccer on the base, and we drive through the base, and you see all the planes, and then you start to think about it. I don't think about it day to day. I just don't think about survival. I just think we will no longer be.
If you did survive the initial shock and concussion and fireball, you would come out and the radiation levels would be so high that, you know, you would have a limited existence. In Omaha, conceivably, underground, you could survive the concussion if you were far enough away in Omaha. But again, the radiation levels would probably be so high that, you know, you couldn't survive. I
can't imagine. It would be just nothing. There would be nothing. It would be barren.
It would be very terrifying. I don't know if I would walk down to the bomb shelter knowing my family and everybody I know here is probably gonna die right then. I don't know if I'd go down to the bomb shelter.
What is there to do? There's nothing, there's no place to go. I can't run home. There's no place to go. You don't do anything. You say a prayer. That's all.
In the next 53 seconds, we will show you what would happen when one 15-megaton nuclear weapon explodes in front of SAC headquarters. Mrs. Allen will be at home. Her children will be at school. Her husband will be 17 miles away at work. From a 15-megaton ground burst would devastate Omaha just that quickly. The fireball would remain on the ground for 20 seconds and open a crater 3/4 of a mile across. It would then rise to a height of 80,000 feet in less than a minute, generating enough heat to cause second and third degree burns 16 miles away.
"15 megatons is 1,050 Hiroshima explosions at the same moment in the same place. And there's simply nothing in human experience that serves as a precedent for this.
Dr. Jack Geiger, professor of community medicine at the City College of New York, and Dr. Kostas Ippas, associate director of the Department of Physics at MIT. Both men worked with us on preparing the film you have just seen, calculating as precisely as possible the exact physical and medical consequences of a limited nuclear strike on Omaha.
When you think of one strike 15 miles out of Omaha, you must also remember that the radioactivity from that one strike is going to reach Chicago at levels that will make everybody sick from radiation sickness.
Doctor, in terms of the medical effects, both short and long range.
Anybody in Omaha that made a reflex glance at the fireball 35 miles away, and Omaha's only 15, would be blinded by retinal burning. There'd be thousands, tens of thousands of people on the side of Omaha that's closest to the SAC base with third-degree burns. there would be skull fractures, there would be ruptured lungs, there would be crushing injuries of the thorax, there would be broken backs, there would be deep lacerations and hemorrhage. Even at 11 or 12 miles, the overpressures are great enough to take an ordinary window and turn it into 1,000 pieces of glass flying at 100 miles an hour, a lethal weapon for anybody inside that room. And that's not including the very high probability that with all of these fires, all of the ignition points, all of the gasoline stations and boilers and broken steam lines and so on, that a mass conflagration or firestorm would develop and simply burn all of Omaha for the next 6 or 8 hours. The reason that's important is that anybody that was in a shelter would be dry roasted, as in a crematorium. The temperatures get to be 800 degrees centigrade. The oxygen in the shelter is evacuated. Our limited experience of firestorms in conventional war in Hamburg and Dresden in World War II, the only people who survived were those that fled. So you have, let's be very conservative and say 200,000 seriously injured people with all of these kinds of injuries. We have never in human history had 200,000 people seriously injured at one place, at one moment, with the possible exceptions of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Things have changed in 3 very important ways now. One is the size that Dr. Geiger spoke about. The weapons now are 70, 100, 1,000 times bigger. The other is that in the Hiroshima case, you had one weapon on one city. Therefore, a few days after the attack in Hiroshima, the trains started rolling in with supplies and relief and additional medical personnel and so on. There won't be anything like that in the case of a nuclear war, even a limited one. There will be many weapons. There will be thousands of weapons, even if we speak about a counterforce, an attack against military targets. And the third and most important thing is that in the Hiroshima case, the weapon exploded in the air, so all its radioactivity was taken up and spread out in the stratosphere. In the case of an attack against military targets, against silos and against airfields, the weapons will explode on the ground. They will vaporize large amount of earth that will rise with the radioactivity, capture the radioactivity, and bring it back to the earth. So in this case, we're going to have radioactive fallout, which was not there at all in the case of the Hiroshima bomb. Radioactive fallout that, in this one case of the 15 megaton weapon we're talking about, will be 1 million curies. How much is that? The 3 Mile Island, the accident 3 Mile Island, released 17 curies.
In this country, the most advanced medically in the world, or certainly at the very minimum, one of the most advanced medically in the world, are we geared medically to cope with a disaster on this scale?
Not at all. The number of third-degree burns in Omaha, even with the attack we have talked about, would almost certainly exceed the number of intensive care burn beds in all of the United States. Now, we could withstand the rupture of the social fabric in Omaha, period. But somewhere between Omaha and a 1,000-weapon attack at our land-based missiles, there'd come a point at which the social fabric of the United States, of the nation, would be so badly ruptured as to make life impossible in anything like current terms.
We've talked about a 2,000-weapon strike on the United States, and it's your judgment that that would destroy this country as certainly as we know it.
As a functioning
social entity.
Would 2,000 weapons, those same 2,000 weapons dropped in the Soviet Union, destroy that country?
Much earlier, much before the 2,000 weapons.
You see, it's been my concept.
Because they're more concentrated.
It's been my impression for so many years that the Soviet Union would stand a better chance of surviving a 2,000-weapon strike than we would.
It depends on what you mean by survival. And when you then talk about their concentration of industry as related to ours, when you talk about their concentration and total number of refineries for oil and the like, they are more vulnerable. They look better only if you look at the dispersion of population and think in terms of biological survival. But biological survival is just postponing death if you don't have the social infrastructure left. And their infrastructure is, if anything, more vulnerable than ours.
As I hear you talk, intelligent, experienced men of science and medicine, what do you say to those people who, hearing all of this, say, I don't doubt you for a moment, but if we believe that a nuclear war is unwinnable and unsurvivable, then we are defeated and we're going to become what the Soviet Union wants? because they believe they can win it and can survive a nuclear war?
My response is that I don't think for a second that they believe that. They know the physics, they know the biology, they know the calculations as well as we do. I don't think conflict in the world is going to end. I think nuclear conflict, nuclear resolution of conflict, will end the world.
In the history of mankind, we've always thought in terms of killing the enemy so we can survive. I mean, since we first considered ourselves into communities, that is not true anymore. If you attempt to kill your enemy by nuclear weapons, you will also die. So we're in an entirely new mode, in an entirely new environment, in an entirely new ecology of survival. For the first time, you cannot ensure your own survival by killing the enemy. The enemy surely can be killed, but you will also be killed assuredly yourself.
One 15-megaton nuclear weapon exploded near Omaha would result in approximately 132,000 deaths by fire, 1.5 million deaths from radiation sickness. Total dead, over 2 million in 6 weeks' time.
The defense of the United States, the defense against nuclear war that could begin here in Omaha or in dozens of other communities, is still, for most people, the stuff of science fiction. But first strike and launch under attack are strategic options just as real as the warheads and missiles that inspired them. Tomorrow night, we move the battleground to Europe. The nuclear threat is the same. Only the size of the missiles, the distances they must travel, and the names of the targets have changed. Tonight, it was Omaha. Tomorrow, it could be Warsaw, Paris, or Berlin. Until tomorrow night, for CBS Reports, Dan Rather.
Now that's greenish blue.
No, dear, that's bluish green.
3 colors ago was bluish green.
Why don't we all cool off with some country time?
Heaven, tastes like the good old-fashioned lemonade you used to make.
It does. Not too tart, not too sweet. You're agreeing.
No.
Natural lemon flavor from real lemons goes into Country Time lemonade flavored drink.
There's the color.
Where?
Country Time, Country Time. Tastes like that good old-fashioned lemonade.
Posing for Olympus, professional model Cheryl Teagues. 5 amateur photographers behind the Olympus OM10 for the first time. OM10, the 35mm automatic that leaves nothing to chance, leaves you free to focus and shoot. And look, the actual pictures these 5 amateurs took. All 100 of them taken with the Olympus OM10.
They're incredible.
Well, you can't take a bad picture, Cheryl.
Neither can you with Olympus OM10.
Sunday night, the beginning of the CBS Reports special series, Defense of the United States. And I'll have more on defense on the CBS Evening News Monday night.
It's Alice, serving a morning breakfast of comic calamity to start off your day with lots of outrageous comedy and laughter every weekday morning with Alice.
This is CBS.
The Iraqis say the Israeli raid on their nuclear reactor was uncalled for. The Israelis say it was necessary for their defense. The controversy, next on Eyewitness News.
Now, get carried away with the great Pizza Hut carry-out jug offer. You'll get a half-gallon thermal jug at a super savings when you order a medium or large size Pizza Hut pizza.
And there's more.
When you carry the jug back, we'll fill it with your favorite soft drink free. Free with your next medium or large carry-out pizza. So get carried away with the great Pizza Hut carry-out jug offer.
Joey called this morning.
So how's Joey? What's wrong?
Nothing.
Nothing? Our Joey called 2,000 miles. The kids are all right?
Fine.
Sally?
Fine.
The kids are fine. Sally's fine. So why did he call?
I asked him that too.
And why are you crying?
Because Joey said I called just because I love you, Mom.
Reach out and touch someone.
Give me a mountain and nothing to do.